Hello, all you subjects of subjects of the internet out there. I am the Aromantic Shipper, coming at you today with yet another video. This time, we are going to be talking about Attack on Titan. Also, spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched the anime or read the manga. It's a rewrite video, of course there are going to be spoilers. Now get the fuck out of here if you don't want to be spoiled, anime onlys. Anyway, Attack on Titan is not a series that I have been a fan of for a very long time. I didn't watch it when its first season was airing, and I actually didn't start watching it until all of Season 3 had already aired. And I was finally convinced to give it a watch by a little YouTuber named Giguk. And his video titled, Attack on Titan is Incredible Now. And quite honestly, after watching all the way to the end of Season 3, I have to say that the series is one of the only ones I have ever watched that fully lived up to the hype and exceeded my expectations. Attack on Titan is a masterclass in storytelling that gave truly satisfying and sensible answers to every question and mystery it brought up, and I had never seen anything like it before. I wasn't ready to call it yet since it hadn't ended, but I was confident that if the show managed to stick the landing, it would become my favorite series of all time, and I was so incredibly excited to see what would happen next, and I wanted Season 4 to come out more than anything in the world. And it did, at least the first half, meaning that I would have to wait like another year before actually getting to see the ending, and then I kept getting fucking spoiled by manga readers every time I went on the goddamn internet, so I just buckled in and decided to read the manga. The first time I've ever read manga, actually. I'm willing to bet Attack on Titan was actually a lot of people's first manga experience, especially since people had to wait 4 years before Season 2 came out, and they probably thought they were never going to see the result of that cliffhanger of a Titan being inside the wall. Unfortunately, in my and in many other people's opinion, the story didn't quite stick the landing, and I was disappointed in it. For a series that was so finely crafted throughout its run, down to the tiniest detail, the ending just felt so messy and honestly ridiculous at times. Like, what was with some of these moments? So, as my amateur writing brain tends to do when I consume a piece of fiction, I automatically started thinking of ways that I would have rewritten the ending to make it better, and I am going to be laying out those ideas here in this video. Now, of course, I am just an average dude who owns a phone. I don't have impressive professional writing credentials or anything like that. These are just my opinions and ideas that I am free to express, and if you have your own opinions on how you think the Attack on Titan manga ending could have been improved, please post them in the comments below. Alright, so firstly we have to lay out my problems with the ending. I just want to make clear that I don't hate the final arc of Attack on Titan as a whole. Far from it. Armin and Gabi forming the Avengers to take down Eren Yeager after he takes control of the founding Titan's powers and uses it to crush the rest of the world with the Wall Titans and destroy humanity. I mean, that's awesome, and it definitely seems like a logical progression of where the story was going, and there are tons of amazing interactions and moments in it that I can't wait to see animated and voice acted. My personal favorite part of the arc was the new Survey Corps versus the Jaegerists to rescue the Osmabitos. That was tense as fuck to read, and had so many incredible and satisfying moments, while also being incredibly tragic, as the main characters are forced to slaughter their friends who they have known since their cadet days, in order to gain the slimmest chance of stopping Eren from killing people they've never even met. It was absolutely brutal, and the moral ambiguity on display is nail-biting, and nothing you would ever think you would see from a story that began with fighting against mindless man-eating monsters. But like I said, the arc just didn't stick the landing, and it weirdly seems like the author Isayama made a bunch of decisions at the end that weren't really necessary and brought down the final arc as a whole a lot. Eren's true plan is revealed, where he saw the future and apparently knew that his friends would kill him, but he was cool with it, because then if the rest of the world knew that Eren was stopped by Eldians, then they would stop hitting Eldians, and then they would stop attacking Eldia. What? And, oh yeah, the organic matter centipede thingy that was responsible for the paths just disappears because Ymir saw that even though Mikasa loved Eren, she still had the autonomy to cut his head off, which somehow released the curse of Ymir, and all the Titans went bye-bye, and apparently Ymir was in love with the original King Fritz, even though she was his slave, and he had people chase her through a forest to try to kill her, and cut off her fucking tongue. What? Like I said, it's just like, weird as fuck decisions that didn't need to be there. I mean, I'm not going to even get into, like, Mikasa embracing necrophilia and smooching Eren's decapitated head, and Reiner creepily sniffing Historia's letter at the end, but, like, yeah, this ending could have been handled better for sure. I think the biggest problem I have with the manga ending is that it's too optimistic. I mean, it's not really a happy ending, to be honest, considering, 80% of the world's population was wiped out. but the text weirdly frames it as a somewhat happy ending, and for a series as dark and depressing as Attack on Titan, it just felt weirdly out of place, especially considering the fact that as a whole, the final arc is probably the darkest this series has ever gotten. So let's talk about how I would rewrite the final arc, stretching from about chapter 123 to 139. Now, of course, most of my major changes will be regarding the last few chapters, but I also have a few alterations I would make beforehand as well. And just to be clear, if I don't mention something in the final arc, assume I kept it as is, unless it directly contradicts one of my changes that I made. Anyway, let's just get to it. This is the Attack on Titan manga ending, rewritten. So first off, in the original manga chapter 123, we get a very important scene between Eren and Mikasa, where Eren asks Mikasa why she cares about him so much, and he gets family zoned by her. As it would be revealed in the final chapter, Eren was apparently in love with Mikasa. In my rewrite though, Eren is not secretly in love with Mikasa, and is instead in love with Historia. And no, I'm not making this entire rewrite just because my preferred ship didn't end up panning out. To be honest though, Eren morphing into a simp for Mikasa at the end was just really weird for a lot of people, not just myself. Especially considering that Eren basically gave no indication whatsoever beforehand that he thought of Mikasa in that way. Like in the Titan Shifter arc, she basically confesses her love to him and goes up to kiss him, and he doesn't even acknowledge this. Mikasa consistently expresses romantic attraction to Eren throughout the whole story, but Eren never once reciprocates it. And, it's kind of weird to call the person you are secretly in love with a slave. I mean, obviously, Eren still cares about Mikasa, but Eren having a romantic connection with Historia just seems so much more natural in my opinion. I loved all of their interactions in the Uprising arc, and I could totally see Eren falling for Historia, seeing as how she was the reason he was able to have faith in himself again, and she saved him from being eaten. And also, she fine as hell. And Historia had lost Ymir and was probably feeling lonely, so it totally makes sense why she would gravitate towards Eren, who she had formed a real lasting connection with, and came over to visit her often. And also, he fine as hell. I mean, it makes a lot more sense than Historia getting knocked up by a random farmer NPC that we never see. Many people theorize that Historia was lying and that her child is actually Eren's, and in my rewrite I'm just going to be confirming that theory later on. But for this chapter, Eren and Mikasa's conversation still happens, but Eren simply tells Mikasa that he knows how she feels about him, but he just doesn't like her in that way. However, he cares for her deeply and wants her to be happy. Also, originally at the end of chapter 123, Eren proclaims to all subjects of Ymir his plan, but I am actually going to be moving that to later on for one simple reason. Eren was basically carrying out his plan so that his friends could be safe, so it made no sense why he would just leave all of the Zeke spinal fluid titans in Shiganshina for them to fight against. So in my rewrite, Armin would theorize that this is the first time Eren has formed the founding titan, so he doesn't have much control over it initially, and thus he is entirely focused on the goal he had when he transformed, which is destroying the entire world. In chapter 124, it is revealed that Reiner had his armor ripped off by Eren, just like the Wall Titans, but this of course would mean that Eren could manipulate the bodies of the other Titan shifters at any time, but didn't because he wanted his friends to win against him. I'm removing this aspect from Eren's plan, making him less overpowered, so it is actually feasible that the characters can pull off an honest win against him in the end. So he wouldn't be able to destroy Reiner's armor since he was a Titan shifter. However, since Annie's crystal wasn't technically part of her Titan body, she could still have her crystal cracked open by Eren. Also, it made no sense why Armin never once used his colossal Titan power during the battle. So after the soldiers gathered up all the Zeke's spinal fluid titans in one place, Armin would transform and kill them all with an explosion. In episode 126, it was really weird how Hitch wasn't with Annie to explain what happened to Armin and gang, and Annie simply left a note to her telling her what happened, so in my rewrite, Hitch would just be there to tell Armin and gang that Annie wasn't going to hurt them, so that things could be smoothed over between them. In chapter 129, when Falco transforms into the Jaw Titan, he should have the wings that he does after Annie unlocks their potential later. Honestly, the female Titan's power to unlock the abilities of other Titans just kind of came out of nowhere. Maybe it would be different if it was properly established that she could do that beforehand, but I don't think it was, so in my rewrite I'm just going to have Falco's Jaw Titan have wings originally. I don't think it would be too far-fetched since there was probably never an instance in the past of a Titan shifter becoming a Titan by being injected with the spinal fluid of another Titan shifter, so potentially the powers might be able to mix. Then we get to chapter 130, where the Survey Corps has gotten on the boat and is headed for the Osmobito station to set up the flying boat. It is actually here that I would move Eren's message to all subjects of Ymir to, and I am going to change Eren's plan and what he is trying to do a bit. Eren of course proclaims that he will destroy all of his enemies, but says that he has come to liberate his people and will destroy all non-Eldians, but leave the Eldian people alive. He proclaims that he is their savior, and his army of colossal titans will free them from their internment zones. I always found it weird how originally Eren was going to destroy the Eldians outside of Paradis too. Wouldn't he recognize that they face pretty much universal subjugation and would want them to be free from their oppression as part of the new Eldian Empire? Regardless, in my rewrite, this would actually impact the overall plot in some significant ways. Firstly, since the Eldian internment zone in Marley is safe from Eren's wrath, that means that Annie would no longer see much of a point in fighting against Eren, since she only wanted to see her dad, and the other characters who grew up in the internment zone would also find great difficulty finding the motivation to fight against Eren, since their families would be safe. In other words, you have a group of Eldians from two locations that were both under horrific oppression, trying to find the strength to fight against an unstoppable force vowing to liberate them from that oppression. Meanwhile, they just got back from killing their comrades, so they're all just considering whether they should give up in the end. However, Mikasa and Armin are the ones who convince them to fight, with Armin telling them that they aren't doing this to save their loved ones, but instead strangers that they don't even know but haven't done anything wrong, and Mikasa vowing to kill Eren herself. Meanwhile, back in chapter 125, all the Eldians in the internment zone in Marley try to warn the Marleyans of Eren Yeager's plan. In my rewrite, of course this would happen later in the story because of Eren's proclamation to the subjects of Ymir happening later, and also it would have a different context, with the Eldians not fearing for their own lives, but for those of the Marleyans. In the end, this would result in a plan being hatched by the people in the Eldian internment zone to save as many Marleyans as possible by having Eldians and Marleyans mingle in the same place together, so that Eren will not crush them and risk killing Eldians indiscriminately. The Marleyans, of course, violently resist this plan, but the Tiber family actually comes in with the clutch, unlike how in the original they were never heard from again, wasted fucking characters, and use their heightened status in society to convince the Marleyans that what the Eldians say is the truth, and they heard it too, and they are adamant that it needs to be done in order to save lives. Originally, Mr. Leonhardt was the leader of the plan to save Marleyans, but that was just kind of weird. Of course, also in chapter 130 is where we get the flashback to Eren's conversation with Historia. Like I said before, in my rewrite, Eren does love Historia, and after he says that he won't allow Zeke to go ahead with his plan and have her sacrificed, she tells Eren how thankful she is for everything he has done for him, and Eren says that he cares about her more than almost anyone in the world. The two then passionately embrace each other. Of course, then later, after Historia is already pregnant, Eren tells her about his plan to destroy all his enemies across the sea with the rumbling, and she tells him that she couldn't live with something like that. She then asks Eren if he even really loves her, or if she is just a pawn in his scheme, and their baby is nothing more than a move against the military police. But Eren tries to assure Historia that the love he feels for her is real, and he is prepared to do anything to protect Historia and their baby. But Historia says that she isn't sure she can love Eren anymore after telling her his plan, and she longs for the days back when she was with Ymir and things were simpler and it felt like they could do anything together. Also, we would then cut back to seeing what Historia is up to back on Paradis while the Avengers are out trying to get Eren. Historia is one of the most important characters in the series since she is, the rightful queen of the Eldian race, and she used to be my favorite character, so it was really disappointing to me how she barely got any focus past the Uprising arc, and got shafted in the final arc with barely any lines. In my rewrite, there should be scenes of her trying to deal with the chaos of everything going on in Paradis, with people turning to her as a leader since, all the other leaders kind of got myrtleized, and her trying to calm everyone's fears and assure them that Eren will keep them safe, while also clearly cracking under the pressure, and having her pregnancy almost come to fruition, and she actually ends up having a mental breakdown, where she hears news that her friends were killing the Jaegerists and escaped to go kill Eren. In chapter 132, I am going to change up some of the mechanics for the lead up to the final battle. As I said before, Eren's plan has been changed, and so he is going to destroy everyone who isn't Eldian, using his path powers to have the Wall Titans sense which people are Eldians and avoid crushing them, meaning that Annie doesn't want to run away and instead wants to use the plane to go back to the Liberio internment zone to see her father, who would still be alive. She would say that she doesn't want to fight anymore and simply wants to be with her family, while Gabby and Falco would still be locked on the boat with the Osmobitos because the characters want to keep them out of danger, and know that if they brought them on the plane, they would want to fight to stop Eren. So Armin basically theorizes that Eren is making the Colossal Titans crush every area of land that he looked at on a map that had people on it, but the Titans know not to crush those connected to them by the paths, so they just have to follow Eren's trail of destruction to find out where he is, and Liberio would be on the way there so they could drop off Annie. Of course, then the Colossal Titans catch up with them, and they are worried about them crushing the runway and blocking their way out. So they need to stop them, and this time Armin does transform to try to stop the Colossal Titans, because if the characters take another day to catch up to Eren in my rewrite, he could just transform again. Of course, it's simply too much for Armin on his own, and Hanji steps in to help, and while on fire, killing Colossal Titans in midair, she names Armin the new Survey Corps leader, and Armin is picked up by the plane as it flies off. Then we get to chapter 133, where originally we get the first hint of foreshadowing that Eren wants to be stopped by his friends, where all the cast realize that Eren is capable of manipulating them because they are connected to the paths, so he could just stop them if he wanted to. But like I said before, in my rewrite, Eren doesn't want them to stop him, and his ultimate plan is to simply kill every non-Eldian in the world with his Colossal Titans, which he grapples with, reminding himself that he isn't even doing this for the greater good, as many more non-Eldians will die than Eldians will be saved, and he reconsiders if he can even go through with his plan in the end. However, he proclaims to himself that he is free, and it doesn't matter if what he is doing is right or wrong, because he is free to choose his own actions. All the while, Ymir is gleefully grinning in the background at all the destruction and death going on. In my version, Eren isn't quite the omnipotent god he is originally, and can see parts of the future, but not the whole future. I mean, Frida Rice had the power of the Founder, but she was by no means omnipotent or had everything planned out, so why would Eren? Anyway, Eren realizes that the Liberio internment zone has been used as a refugee for Marleyans, where the Eldians and Marleyans are joining together to prevent the Marleyans from being crushed by using the Eldians as a shield against the Colossal Titans that won't tread over them. So Eren turns around while most of his Colossal Titans continue moving forward to crush the rest of the world, so he can personally deal with Liberio. Then, while Armin and crew on the plane are talking about whether Eren would kill his friends if they try to kill him, Eren of course path Skypes them and telling them that they are free to try to stop him, but they won't succeed, and he is giving them their freedom to live by destroying their enemies, and they should be grateful. He then spars with Armin specifically and says that after everything is over, they can finally live out their dreams of seeing the outside world in its entirety, and shows him images of deserts, volcanoes, and fields of ice that his Titans saw. But of course Armin is still set in his belief that he needs to stop Eren. Of course, like I said before, Annie got on the plane, so she isn't on the Osmobitos ship, and Falco's natural Jaw Titan form would be capable of flying without the female Titan, and he would just have to practice controlling it on the ship until he is able to fly, which ends up sinking the ship. Meanwhile, like I said, the Eldians in the internment zone have brought in a bunch of Marleyans at the request of the Tiber family, and there are also a bunch of airships there as well, unlike how in the original it was kind of confusing how Mr. Leonhard was like holding Marleyans at gunpoint and forcing them to go to a military base. In Chapter 134, it originally showed panels of Historia giving birth, and while she would of course be close to fulfilling the pregnancy by this point, in my rewrite Historia does not actually give birth just yet, and of course she is still reeling from the effects of her mental breakdown. Then we get to the last stronghold of humanity and its last stand against Eren. Originally the Zeppelins attacked before the Survey Corps got there, but in my rewrite, since the last stronghold of humanity is actually in Liberio, the plane would arrive there before Eren would get there to drop off Annie, who would go to try and search for her dad, but the Survey Corps would go up ahead to catch up to Eren, wondering if they even have enough fuel, but they would run into Eren, heading straight for Liberio, and return to warn them. This would give a chance for the characters to interact with the people there and explain what is going on, and the alliance that was formed between the warriors and the Eldians from the island. This would be going on while Annie would still, of course, be scrambling through the incredibly crowded internment zone trying to find her father. Although it takes much convincing, the Eldians and Marleyans in the internment zone agree to join together with the Survey Corps to make one final counterattack against Eren. And it is after this that the original speech in Chapter 134 takes place from Director Muller about how they were the ones who created the Devil Eren Yeager, since originally, even though it was a powerful speech, it showed a bit too unrealistic levels of self-reflection. But now it's different, since the commander would have the perspective that Armin would give him. Also, Peek and Reiner would get to meet their families and tell them about what happened, and Eren's grandparents would even get the chance to talk to Armin and Mikasa for a final send-off. More on that later. While Annie would still be struggling to find her father, who got lost in all the chaos, I guess. Then, when Eren arrives at Liberio, that is when the Survey Corps and the last refuge of humanity in Liberio start their attack together, with the Zeppelins bombing from above and taking out as many colossal titans as possible to get Eren alone, and the Survey Corps going down to engage Eren on the ground where he is. However, Annie wouldn't be there, and she would still be looking for her dad in Liberio. Chapter 135 is where things start getting kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. So it is revealed that Eren is able to summon the forms of any Titan shifter from the past from his main body to fight. First off, that doesn't really make any sense. I mean, yes, he has the Founding Titan's power, but he has only consumed 3 of the 9 Titans, so why would he be able to summon previous female Titan users, for instance, while the current female Titan is still Annie? Furthermore, Isayama has still not answered the age-old question of what happens if a dude inherits the female Titan. And come on, being able to summon like 100 Titan shifters at once, that is way too overpowered and just a really unnecessary plot point. In my rewrite, Eren has his Founding Titan body, but he can also summon the Attack Titan and the Warhammer Titan as entities connected to his main body to fight for him, and also the Beast Titan too, since he did absorb Zeke. And he would still have the ability to change between previous users of Titans, but only one user at a time. So Eren would only have 3 Titans to work with. This previous user's ability would, of course, be most useful with the Beast Titan, as Eren would summon like an Octopus Beast Titan or something to incapacitate Armin without letting him injure himself, unlike how he was originally eaten by a Pig Titan. Eren would still be really powerful, especially since the Titans wouldn't have a weak spot on their nape, but he wouldn't be so overpowered that it feels like he's just letting them win, unlike in the original, though the characters do notice that Eren is fighting much more ferociously against enemies like Pieck and Reiner than friends like Connie and John, and he is trying to defeat them without killing them. Of course, like originally, Pieck would try to blow up Eren's nape and fail, and the Survey Corps would be overwhelmed as the Warhammer and Beast Titan take out all the Zeppelins, and even Young Capone is killed as Eren destroys the plane, and they would be especially overwhelmed after Eren absorbs Armin and Bertholdt's colossal titan grows out of him. But just when it all seems lost, Bird Falco would come to save the day and rescue everyone, including Pieck this time, unlike how originally she was still stuck around Eren's nape and probably should have been killed easily with all the titans there. Now, getting to chapter 136 in my rewrite, the characters actually retreat back to Liberio and try to regroup, as Eren still hasn't quite made it there yet, and they still have the energy for more transformations, so they go to tell Annie that Armin has been captured. Rather than being convinced to return by Falco and Gabby, Annie considers fighting Eren to save probably the only other person in the world she cares about, Armin, but she still wants to find her dad. Before the Survey Corps go back for another round against Eren, Annie is actually finally reunited with her father, and she gives him the short version of everything that happened. Her father tells her that she should simply give up on fighting as he has put her through enough, and she should just stay in the internment zone where she will be safe against Eren Yeager. And this is where we actually get to a major change of mind. In Chapter 138, the organic matter centipede thingy released after Armin nuked Eren released gaseous spinal fluid to turn all the Eldians into Titans. But in my version, Eren does that himself earlier while he is in his Founding Titan state. His plan to kill all the remaining Marleyans without killing the Eldians in the internment zone is to just transform all the Eldians into Titans and have them eat the Marleyans, which means, just like originally, Annie's dad turns into a Titan directly after they first meet again after 10 years, and the Survey Corps look on in horror on the safety of Falco's Titan, as the internment zone Titans, including their families, devour the Marleyans, which with many of their last words being, "We should have never trusted you Eldian devils." Also, Yelena, who was there, died too, I guess, by being eaten. I'm definitely going for a darker ending in my rewrite. Anyway, Annie is completely horrified at her dad being turned into a Titan, and she is rescued by the Survey Corps and gets onto Falco, and says that now she wants nothing more than to kill Eren and will fight against him, so they go back onto Eren's body and have their final showdown. Another thing I want to mention is that Pieck's ass-pull power of being able to form the Card Titan like a million times over makes no sense. It was stated that Pieck's Card Titan has great endurance, meaning that it can sustain its form for a long time, but that wouldn't mean that she could make like 50 Card Titans in rapid succession. That would just be way too much energy, so I'm cutting it out. In chapter 137, when Zeke and Armin are having their conversation in the paths, Zeke tells Armin that in many ways all the Eldians are part of Ymir, so she wouldn't want to destroy them. However, although Eren and Ymir's goals of killing all the non-Eldians align, in the end, Eren is still in control of what he wants to use her power for, and he is doing all of this of his own accord. This will be important later. Although Armin and Zeke gain strength from the previous Titan users in the past, in my rewrite, Titans like Bertold and Ymir of course don't start attacking all the other Titans. Instead, rather than being cut out of that pig Titan who had Armin originally, Armin is fused with Eren's founding Titan, but is able to emerge from Eren's body through sheer will, after which Annie meets him again, like originally, but then the Warhammer Titan smashes Annie's nape to pieces and she dies right after being reunited with Armin because I'm a monster. And also, Armin isn't completely free yet, as he is still partially fused to Eren and can't control his colossal Titan power. One major change is that after Zeke is chopped to pieces by Levi, Eren is still able to control the Colossal Titans because he is touching the founder Ymir, who is of royal blood by way of the paths, which means killing Zeke did nothing but get rid of the Beast Titan. At this point, the Survey Corps is desperately trying to hang on, and Gabby, who has been assisting with her sniper rifle, falls off Falco from the recoil. Falco tries to catch her with his claws, but shreds her leg and waist to pieces, nearly killing her. Reiner, who is pretty much wasted, decides to abandon the battle to go back aboard Falco, and in order to save Gabby, he tells Falco to let her drop in front of Eren so she can inhale the gaseous Titan spinal fluid, and she transforms into a pure Titan, after which Reiner lets her eat him to bring her back, finally letting the plot armor Titan rest. Quite tragic irony. Reiner told Falco to protect Gabby, and he accidentally almost killed her, and he specifically didn't want her inheriting his Titan, but in the end, it is what saved her. Anyway, with Levi on the brink of collapse, Falco tries to get to him so that he can do one more act, and he grabs Gabby's naked ass and pulls her up onto Falco, who swooped down to get her, so as to not risk Falco injuring her again, which would make sense since Levi is an Ackerman and wouldn't be affected by the spinal fluid. Meanwhile, the best girl Peak keeps fighting with the remaining Survey Corps members like a champ, and almost manages to blow up Eren's nape with new explosives she brought from Liberio, since Eren would have been able to shake off the original ones himself, but she is crushed by his attack Titan and dies. So Connie ends up filling in for her, detonating the explosives, and sacrificing himself to blow up Eren's nape, with his last words being to his friends, "If my mom ever comes back somehow, tell her son died a hero." After this, the organic matter centipede thingy is released, which means Eren starts to lose control of the Founding Titan, and Armin is released from the fusion, so he can finally use his Colossal Titan powers again. After Falco takes everybody away, he blows Eren's head and body and all the Colossal Titans surrounding them away. Then we get to chapter 138. By this point, I've changed the direction the story was going in pretty significantly, with me killing off a lot more characters than originally, so pretty much the only ones left are an incapacitated Levi and Gabby, Miksa, Armin, John, and Falco. And in my version, things are even more dire, because the rumbling doesn't stop when Eren loses control of the Founder, and instead the Colossal Titans simply become mindless Titans, unable to be controlled by anyone. After Eren comes back, revealing he hid his real body in the ground, he isn't that weird Colossal Titan form he was originally, because that made no sense. Instead, he is simply his Warhammer Attack Titan form, since he really doesn't have any other Titans. The climax of this fight is Eren trying to reconnect with the centipede paths thingy, as it can hardly move since it's basically like a parasite that needs a host to function. So it's Eren versus Armin, Miksa, John, and Falco, while they all have to worry about the Colossal Titans and Internment Zone Titans coming their way to try to eat them. The characters consider simply letting Eren reconnect with the founder Ymir so that he can get control of the paths again to save them, but even if they kill Eren, the Colossal Titans have already been released from the wall and will continue to rampage the world, so their efforts have been in vain, and they should just give up after so many have already died. However, Armin says that even if the Colossal Titans will still rampage, humanity has a much better chance of surviving if they are mindless, since Eren was simply giving them all efficient directions for wiping out humanity. And how he even knew how to get Titans across the sea by having Colossal Titans walk on a bridge of floating Colossal Titans. But if the Colossal Titans are mindless, then humanity might still have a chance. So against all odds, our heroes continue to fight against Eren. Armin is in his Colossal Titan form, but Eren is still able to give the Survey Corps a run for their money, especially with his Warhammer Titan power, where he is able to hide his real body in places other than his nape, as Miksa notices when she tries to slice it. Eventually, Eren is able to incapacitate Falco and gets injured, which means Miksa and Armin are the only ones in the fight. Eren ends up leading a bunch of internment zone titans to gnaw on Armin's legs, while a colossal titan takes him down, and then Eren bites Armin out of his nape. It is revealed that Eren's true body is inside his mouth, and also since it is his normal titan form, he doesn't have that weird centipede head anymore. As Eren tries desperately to get back to the organic matter centipede thingy, he talks with Armin, telling him to just give up and stop this madness, and he never wanted any of this to happen. He tells Armin to just let him complete his goal, and he doesn't want any more of his friends to die, asking Armin what he's even fighting for. But Armin tells Eren that they are both madmen who will stop at nothing to achieve their goals, saying that those who can't sacrifice everything can't accomplish anything. He tells Eren that, he is fighting for his selfish goals of freedom, which he wholeheartedly believes in, while he is fighting to save humanity, and as long as their goals come into conflict with one another, they will keep fighting until one of them kills the other. Then Mikasa comes in to rescue Armin from Eren, and Armin tells her that Eren is inside his titan's mouth. So Mikasa, of course, goes in for the kill, blowing Eren's jaw open, and she imagines what her life would have been like with Eren if they had left everything behind. And she goes in for the final strike as the last capable fighter left. However, this time Eren creates a hardening inside his mouth to impale Mikasa before she kills him. But then he flashes back to that moment where him, Armin, and Mikasa were talking at the night before the mission to retake Wall Maria, and so his hardening crumbles away, and Mikasa cuts his head off, and doesn't smooch it afterwards because that was just weird. And it cuts to Ymir looking at Eren's decapitated head and crying. Also, I should point out that at the exact same time that Eren gets his head chopped off, Historia gives birth, and Eren's titan makes contact with the organic matter centipede thing, and a bunch of pure titans are already closing in, ready to eat them all. This is important for my rewrite of the final chapter, 139. The chapter that many fans say ruined the Attack on Titan storyline, and while I definitely would not go that far, it really wasn't the best. I wasn't really a big fan of this chapter. So let's talk about my changes that I would make. So in my rewrite, Eren's plan is definitely not to set his friends up as the heroes who saved humanity. That was just really fucking dumb. I mean, I get that Isayama was probably trying to take inspiration from Lelouch of the Rebellion, but it just doesn't fucking work here, especially since Eren's main goal was to keep his friends safe. But, they would have been way safer if Eren had just destroyed all of humanity than just destroying 80% of it. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I don't think that the rest of the world would give a fuck that they were saved by Eldians because it was an Eldian who, destroyed 80% of them. The world would probably be way more afraid of Eldians than before and want to kill them all. No, in my rewrite, here's how things go. I said before that right as Eren got decapitated, his titan touched the organic matter centipede thingy, so he would basically do a time freeze before he died like Zeke did to talk to Armin in the past, and it wouldn't be revealed that he secretly had a conversation with him on the boat before, but then erased his memory because that was just an unnecessary plot point. In the past, Eren would be having a conversation with Armin and Ymir. Ymir is heartbroken that Eren gave up in the end and used her power to do what he did, and tells Eren that he told her she was finally free to do what she wanted and exact her revenge. Then the three get into a long exchange about what freedom really is, and Eren apologizes to Ymir for not letting her carry out her wish. However, he says that gaining maximum freedom often comes at the cost of others' freedom. The original king, Karl Fritz, had lots of freedom to travel all over the world and to consume great luxuries, and to make his subjects and slaves do whatever he wanted. In my rewrite, Ymir Fritz was not in love with Karl Fritz because that was just really weird. I mean, this is the same guy who cut off your tongue, but, instead, Ymir is just the case of someone who had the ideology of a slave so thoroughly beaten into her that she couldn't conceive of turning against her master, even after gaining her godlike power, and all the kings after him gave her commands that she obeyed, while Eren was the first person who came along and asked her what she wanted to do, and told her that she was free. So Eren was the one who set Ymir free, and not Mikasa from her trap of love or whatever. Mikasa was still the one to kill Eren in the end, as it was a really good conclusion to her character arc of finding the strength to kill the man she loved in the end. However, Mikasa didn't break the curse of Ymir. Eren tells Ymir that the kind of freedom he wanted took away far too many other people's freedom for it to be in any way justified, and that he would die in 4 years anyway, and he says that Ymir probably isn't going to get what she wanted, but she no longer has to be a slave to the royal family now either. Armin asks why Eren allowed Mikasa to kill him in the end, and asks Eren if he saw the error of his ways, but Eren says that even though he knew it was wrong, he was still determined to carry out his plan to eradicate humanity to the bitter end to achieve his goal. But there was one thing he wasn't prepared to do, while Armin and Mikasa could. Eren could accept the deaths of even people like Sasha and Connie, but in the end, Eren couldn't bring himself to kill his two closest friends in the world. And that is why he gave up in the end, because continuing to fight would have meant killing them, the people he did all of this for in the first place. This would show that even though Eren had become a ruthless mass murderer who caused the deaths of hundreds of millions, in the end he is still the same person who was begging Levi to save Armin's life with the syringe 4 years ago, even though Eren would have been the more practical choice. Eren simply can't let go of his friends, and that became his downfall. It's simply not that compelling for me to have it be revealed that when Eren kissed Historia's hand at the medal ceremony, he suddenly became an omnipotent god who saw all the events that were going to happen, and knew what he had to do. In my rewrite, when he kisses Historia's hand, he only saw a vision of the rumbling, but didn't know everything that was going to happen. Also, it is not revealed that Eren somehow went back in time and steered the Dyna Titan away from eating Bertold. She was just super jelly that her man got remarried. In their conversation, Armin doesn't at all celebrate Eren for massacring 80% of the human race like he did originally, because seriously, Isayama, you already have enough people calling you a fascist sympathizer. Did you really need to add that line in? But he is still understanding the burden Eren was carrying, and points out to him that if he thought he had no choice but to do what he did, then he wasn't really free at all. Eren then says that he was trying to push away his friends from him so that they wouldn't be complicit in his actions, and so wouldn't be eaten up by the guilt of what he did, like he was, and he admits that he felt like he wanted to die in the end, and is glad that it's over, but he would have liked to see his dream of freedom ultimately fulfilled. Armin tells him what he told Zeke about the little, seemingly insignificant moments that truly make life worth living, such as the conversation they are having in the past right now. But that ultimately won't change the fact that Eren died, but is still heartwarming. Armin tells Eren that he can finally rest now, but before he unfreezes time, he tells Armin that he wished he could talk to Mikasa in the past too, and say goodbye to her. He tells Armin that he loves Historia and that her baby is his, but he is sorry for everything he said to Mikasa and has always deeply cared for her, thinking of her as his family. And he tells Armin to tell her to forget about him and live the rest of her life in peace and freedom. So yes, in my rewrite, Eren does not transform into an awkward, jealous cuck right the fuck out of nowhere and complain about Mikasa finding another guy. That was just pitiful. And then we cut back to reality, where the semi-happy ending that we got originally does not happen. Like I said, I take major issue with how strangely optimistic the ending of Attack on Titan felt. It was very out of place for a series that is known for being incredibly unsatisfying, and the Curse of the Titans just miraculously disappearing, and all the Eldians reverting to normal humans in the Eld, and felt way too easy and contrived for a satisfactory resolution. And the final arc of Attack on Titan set up a no-win scenario, and any victory in the series should feel earned, like it has in the past, and Mikasa accidentally curing the Curse of Ymir by kissing Eren's decapitated head was not earned. So here's how I would make a much darker aftermath of the battle against Eren Yeager. Armin wakes up to Mikasa, and they both realize that all of the Titans around them have been hardened. Armin now realizes what Ymir meant when she was talking to Eren, as at the last second, when he briefly touched the centipede organic matter thingy, he used the power of the Founding Titans to harden all the Titans in the world, including the Colossal Titans, and this was done mostly to keep his friends from being eaten by them. The Eren Titan would also be hardened, which would be a cool reference to the ending of Opening 6 for the series. However, while the Titans have been hardened, the Curse of Ymir has not yet been lifted, and the organic matter centipede thingy is still there, connected through the past to all Eldians, and waiting for a new host to touch it. Also, as I went over before, a lot more characters died in my rewrite than originally, and all of the Internment Zone Titans would be frozen in stone permanently, while all the Marleyans who actually learned to work together with them were eaten. Only Armin, Mikasa, John, Falco, Gabby, and Levi end up surviving. Gabby wakes up, and after Falco comes out of his Titan form, the two hug each other, of course, but after Gabby learns of what happened to everyone, and that Reiner and her family are dead, after her partial memory loss, she starts sobbing, of course. Levi, who is barely clinging to life, dies after seeing visions of his fallen comrades of the Survey Corps, and remembering Kenny's words about how everyone is a slave to something, he gives one final salute. I think Levi dying would be a very cathartic end to his character, certainly more so than getting carted around in a wheelchair by Falco of all people. Hasn't Isayama learned from Kishimoto, robbing a character of a satisfying self-sacrifice and just having them be a cripple until the end of time doesn't usually go over well with fans? The 5 remaining characters from the fight all try to figure out what to do, with all of them horrified at what has just taken place, and they can hardly congratulate themselves on their victory after everything that was lost. In terms of the epilogue, since the Marleyans who allied with the Survey Corps of Eldia were all devoured, there would be no witnesses to the heroic sacrifices of the Eldians who stopped Eren Yeager. Thus, Armin explains that the period after Eren's genocide left the world in a state of horrible famine and chaos, and every civilization on the planet had one easy scapegoat to point to as the cause of their misery: the Eldian race. All over the globe, the remaining humans are carrying out Eldian purges, exterminating the remaining Eldians from internment zones en masse because of their fear of another rumbling, which means that Eren's plan and his failure to carry out his plan made everything a million times worse for Eldians worldwide. And even though 80% of the world's population has been wiped out, Eldians are still far outnumbered. Many Eldians had no choice but to flee to the one place they would be safe, the new Eldian Empire, which had expanded to claim much of the territory of the Marleyan continent that was laid bare for them by Eren. This new nation is at least able to hold its own against the broken nations of the rest of the world, temporarily, but it's only a matter of time before the rest of the world is ready again to take its revenge against Eldia and slaughter all of the Titan Eldian race. Oh yeah, we really going dark. So our beloved narrator Armin then explains the events that happened further. Despite the fact that they are the ones responsible for killing Eren, Historia actually manages to grant them amnesty back onto the island, as in her mind they need to unite against a common threat of the outside world again. Gabby and Falco, having had all their loved ones either die or turn into hardened titans, stay with the Browse family out in the boonies, where no one would recognize them, and they keep their titan powers a secret, able to live as normal kids, at least for a time. Of course, Mikasa gets to bury Eren's head at the tree where they played out, and gets to say a final goodbye. Mikasa, Jean, and Armin also visit Historia, who successfully gave birth to Eren's child, but looks completely dead inside. However, things don't turn out well for them, as weeks after being led onto the island, Jaegerists attack them to avenge their fallen savior Eren, and use a Titan serum to try to steal Armin's power. Historia also suffers from an assassination attempt by the Jaegerists for letting in the traitors who killed Eren, and Mikasa, Jean, and Armin, who survived and had to kill yet more of their people to do so, try to get back to Historia, and when they do, they find that she has hung herself, abandoning her country and her baby, with her last words being, "I'm sorry, Ymir." Oh yeah, we really going dark here. After this, Armin, Mikasa, and Jean try desperately to escape the Eldian Empire and bring Historia and Eren's child to safety, as Historia was pretty much the one thing holding the new Eldian Empire together as a fragile nation. But after her death, things completely fall apart with no obvious leader candidate, with all of them being, killed by the Jaegerists, leading to different factions of the Empire vying for power over the nation as a full-scale civil war breaks out, killing tens of thousands, meaning Eldia's position is incredibly vulnerable to an outside attack. Jean, Mikasa, and Armin are able to escape the fighting, and many other people leave the Eldian Empire to escape the fighting too, like the Browse family, despite the dangers coming from the outside remaining nations of the world. Finally, the story cuts to 4 years after the death of Eren Yeager, where Mikasa is raising Eren's son as her own for his and Historia's sake. Jean, who I chose to keep alive while killing off characters like Connie, Peek, Reiner, and Annie for this scene I'm about to get into specifically, breaks down, shouting, "Damn it! What was it all for in the end? What did we fight so hard for? What were all the sacrifices for? Marco, Sasha, Connie, 80% of humanity? What was it for? A civil war that's dragged on for years with no end in sight? Our enemies are still prepared to wipe us all out with more urgency than ever before? What did your plan buy us, you suicidal maniac? A decade at most of continued survival? No, that's wrong. This is our doing. We were the ones who stopped Eren from carrying out his plan. This is us. Damn it. Maybe we should have never tried to fight against Eren in the first place. Even if civil war did eventually break out, at least we wouldn't still have the threat of the entire world coming down on us to deal with. We fought so hard to lose so much and gain so little." Armin, of course, tells Jean that even though stopping Eren from finishing off the human race has put Eldians in grave danger, in the end he still thinks it was the right thing to do, as there are men, women, and children, millions of them, who are alive in the world and happy to be alive because of what they did. And even if there were no witnesses to the fact that Eldians saved them all. The trio then questions what they are supposed to do now, and Armin says that he is done fighting. He tells John and Mikasa that this is where they part ways, as although they are all wanted traitors in Eldia's eyes, Armin is much more of a prime target, so the colossal titan power can be taken back to defend against enemies, as Eldia is searching tirelessly for the new holders of the Founder, Attack, Beast, Female, Cart, and Warhammer Titans, so John and Mikasa will be much safer without him. They asked Armin what he's planning to do, and he says that he has only 6 years left of his life. And even though he is done fighting, he wants to make something more of the last years of his life, and is taking after both Grisha and Zeke Yeager. Grisha, in that he is working on a series of books cataloging everything he has experienced, so that maybe some people will be able to read the truth in the future, and Zeke, in that he's incredibly curious as to how the paths work, and what the centipede organic life thingy is, since it really hasn't disappeared in my version, and is still amongst the hardened titans at the remains of Liberio. Mikasa tells Armin that it is probably quarantined, and he will never get close to it, especially as an Eldian, and he responds that he will just have to use his skills as a negotiator to try to not die, and who knows, if he can convince the other nations, possibly through the Osmobito clan, who survived by feigning ignorance to the Rumbling Plan, that he was the one who killed Eren, he might be able to stop the Eldian people from being wiped out. After everything, Armin is still the hopeful optimist. Armin tells Mikasa and John that they should stop fighting too, and just live out the rest of their long lives together and get married, after which John gets really flustered and is like, "What the hell, that came out of nowhere, don't you think? Besides, like I would ever marry someone who is obsessed with a suicidal maniac like Eren." After which, Armin starts laughing, saying the little things, calling back to his conversation with Zeke about how the little insignificant joys in life are what make life worth living. Finally, Attack on Titan comes to an end with Mikasa coddling Eren's baby and tearing up about how much he reminds her of him, and how beyond redemption he became in the end. And then, Eren's baby wraps Mikasa's scarf around her and says, "As many times as you want." And that's when Mikasa realizes Eren's Attack Titan has been reincarnated as his son. And not a bird, because what? How the fuck, Isayama? This is why, by the way, in my rewrite, I had Historia giving birth at the exact same time Eren got decapitated. Mikasa makes a promise to herself and to the deceased Eren that his child won't turn out the way he did, and although he will only live 13 years, he will be happy and able to travel through the lands that Eren cleared out of people, and he won't get caught up in any wars or fighting or bloodshed, and he will never have to go through what Eren did and become a slave to his vengeance and hatred. And then Mikasa says the final line, which was originally supposed to be the final line in this series, to baby Eren: "You are free." This would finally cap off Mikasa's character arc, as all those years ago, Eren saved her life by telling her that she has to fight to live. But now she is finally done fighting and has sworn to make sure that Eren's reincarnation doesn't ever go down the same path he did. And the ultimate message of the series would of course be that genocide is bad, 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 a message that was slightly muddled originally when Armin thanked Eren for destroying 80% of humanity, and that war and conflict ultimately never lead to anything good, with the characters finally accepting that their fighting days are over, despite the fact that the fighting itself isn't over, and the message that fear and the inability to understand others will lead to the downfall of humanity. My rewritten ending of Attack on Titan, as I said before, would be darker and less hopeful than originally, and I wanted it to be like this because Attack on Titan is a series that at its core has always been deeply unsatisfying, and even when it gives the characters a victory, they always find out later that that victory turned out to be hollow. So yes, while I still would have Eren dying in the end, as I really don't think Eren just destroying the entire world and winning would have been that satisfying either, I wanted to show how the aftermath of the character's victory would have deeply disturbing and depressing repercussions for the Eldian race, without an easy fix of the Curse of Ymir being lifted and all the Eldians turning back into normal humans. Eren may have been defeated, but the Eldians are still connected by the past. The organic matter centipede thingies still can't die unless every Eldian is wiped out. Because, yeah, why would the centipede thingy just disappear after Ymir got over her slavery mindset? It clearly existed before she made contact with it. Think, Isayama, think! In my rewrite, it would be a largely immobile parasite that would reproduce itself through the paths after connecting with a host. Nothing has really been solved in the end. The Eldian Empire is at war with itself, Historia couldn't keep her promise to Ymir and live with pride, Connie never got to reunite with his mother, and the world still wants to wipe out all the Eldians, and the team-up between the Island Devils, Internment Zone Eldians, and Marleyans that could have been a sign of a more understanding and less bloodthirsty future was ultimately meaningless as the Marleyans died at the hands of the transformed Eldians, cursing them as devils as they were devoured. This deeply unsatisfying ending would have been much more satisfying in my opinion, as it would keep better to the tone of the show and be a more realistic aftermath to the whole 80% of the human race being wiped out, rather than how originally the characters ended up serving as ambassadors for peace negotiations between nations. Again, I'm not saying that the ending to Attack on Titan was a happy one. I mean, it still shows the nation of Eldia becoming more radicalized and militaristic after the death of Eren, but it still did end on an optimistic note, and I don't think it should have. And yet, even with my downer ending, there are still cracks of hope, but on a smaller scale, like Gabby and Falco getting a relatively happy ending by getting to live out the rest of their 13 years together with the Browse family, going back to what Mr. Browse was saying about needing to keep the kids out of the forest, and even Armin still remaining a Chad peace enjoyer rather than a virgin rumbling fan by making peace with his plan to kill Eren, and still remaining optimistic that he can do some good with what little time he has left without resorting to more violence. And since that centipede organic matter thingy hasn't disappeared and Armin T's trying to find it again, that would actually leave room for a sequel series where we could maybe find out some more about what that thing actually is and where it came from, since we never got any concrete answers in the series. But again, this is just my opinion on how I thought the manga ending could have been improved. I mean, I didn't fix everything about it, I know. I mean, I probably missed a few plot holes that would have been introduced for my rewrite. I mean, there were plot holes in the original ending, but, whatever. I mean, I know I wasn't the only one who wasn't a huge fan of how the series ended, with Isayama himself even admitting that he didn't really like it. So perhaps we will get a different ending for the anime adaptation, who knows. But before Season 4 Part 2 comes out, I really just wanted to get a rewrite out there for the ending of the Attack on Titan manga. And I must reiterate that even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, I understand that ending a series in a satisfying way that will please everyone is incredibly difficult, and I have nothing but tremendous respect for what Isayama has been able to accomplish with his first ever manga series. Anyways, this has been the Aromantic Shipper. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and as always remember, just because you can't feel love doesn't mean you shouldn't want other people to. Bye.